Hello, and welcome back to episode 2 of Xilia's Dungeon Run. So in this video, we're going to continue where we left off. If you have been following, or if you'd like to go back and start from the beginning, we did about a little under an hour of Xilia, my hero, my level 1 Weapon Master Wrathspawn Iron Collar character. She is a really fun character so far, and she is in the Glacial Burrower's domain now, having completed her introductory domain off camera. We jumped right into picking up where I left off in early few rooms of the Glacial Burrower's domain. And I apologize for the lighting. It's quite bright on the top of the screen, but bottom line is you can kind of see we are in this room, and I am new to map building with this book, and so I'm going to be doing some quick just sketches to kind of get this thing going. But basically, we're going to be attempting to go through this top right door here, and then I'll continue drawing it by saying that this room loops around back here. Bottom line is we're in this room that has two doors to the front, left, and right. There were a couple of mistakes I made, and I'm going to continue making mistakes, but as we play and I go back, and again, I'm very helpful to check rules of the Discord channel at Black Oath Entertainment, Alex T. Super responsive, and there's a lot of other helpful players in the Discord. I was able to clarify a few things. But the biggest clarification that I needed to catch us up from where we left off in the last game was I checked, you're allowed to check if these two doors were locked, which we did. But I did roll for if they were trapped prior to actually trying to open it. Now the good news is the first door I went to was not trapped, and so we can just move on and say that I rolled at this door that it was not trapped. But if it had been trapped, we would have been in a situation where we would needed to make a perception check. We would have had to roll on a difficulty for how difficult this trap is, and then make a perception check modified by that difficulty of the trap, and then see if we caught the trap in time to basically avoid the damaging effects. So that step I did bungle. Is that a word? Bungle? Bumble? I fumbled it. But we're going to probably keep making a few errors here and there as we go, and hopefully over time, again, repetition and reps through the dungeon. My goal is that when I have questions, I may not do it live perfectly, but I'll go and follow up after the video with what should have been done. So basically we looked, this door was locked, not trapped. We're going to ignore that we know. In fact, at this point we would have just stopped. We wouldn't even rolled on this door yet, so we're not going through that door. We only knew that they were both locked. We know that this one is now not trapped. So the idea is next step before we can roll to get through that door is we have to break it down, because we still don't have a lock pick. So it's something that Alex reminded in the Discord today when I was on there, that he has developed in his second zine, or first or second zine, one of the zines, a way to craft lock picks. So we may need to do that at our next campsite. But in the meantime, what we're trying to do here is break down the door. And so breaking down the door is an athletics skill check. And so we're going to go to Xilia's athletics, and she is a 40. So our first attempt at breaking the door down is going to be rolling 40 or less. Ooh, 48. So Xilia almost manages to break the door down, but it needs a little more convincing. Now, every time we roll to try and break down the door, again, we're rolling on the tension die, which is currently a D8. To see if we hit a 1 or a 2, then we drop the tension die because we're creating too much noise. Thankfully, we rolled an 8. So now she gets to roll again with her athletics check plus 20, because again, she was able to do some work towards bashing the door down the first time. And there we have it. She rolls a 13. So she has successfully knocked down the door. In doing so, at a 6, she did not trigger any growing darkness events to come any closer to her yet. So the story in this room was we were just in a very slippery, watery underbelly of the domain. She had gone down and taken steps deeper into this watery level. And there was an event here. We rolled 100 on the event table, which was really bad. A Valerian lord, an old ghost, a ghoul, came and ran up to her and shook her with testing her sanity and madness. And she actually ended up rolling that she took a hit to her madness, and we lost, I think it was like minus 10 to some skill. I honestly would have to go back and double check, but no, scavenging. Her scavenging dropped to 20, which was really really not fun because I want to scavenge these rooms. So that has made it harder for her not only to scavenge, but her personal goal of scavenging 100 rooms successfully. She's only at 3, so this is looking a lot tougher. But at least we didn't die. There was a way that we could have straight up died from that event. So we now get to enter this room, and we're going to see what type of room we are entering. So let's roll our D100. We got up a 91. So let's see, 91 is this guy. So we got this sort of octagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is an octagon. So I'm gonna quickly sketch it here. Something like that, that. Perfect. And 91 does have, ooh, we get 4 doors. Very cool. So well, we entered this side, so we're coming in to here. So you can kind of see my sketch. What I did was I looped us back down to the bottom of the page, and we're entering the bottom of this. So we have 3 doors to look at, so that's perfect. We have this door, this door, this door, and Xilia has just entered into this room. So before we're really going to be looking at any of the doors any further, we have to resolve what happens in this room. So this basic table here shows us that we did roll to get a room, not a corridor. So let's go ahead and do our steps one by one. So upon entering the room, Xilia is now down to 1 light source left on her torch. So we'll eventually be using up a consumable torch or candle to reignite her flame, but we're almost through that. And we tick down the light source. We're going to do a tension and a layer check for if we're any closer to finding our baddie. So let's look at those dice again. So on our tension dice we've been rolling, it has been the D8. And let me see if I can adjust this slightly here. There we go. So that still has things in view. Looks like okay. Sorry, it's a really kind of bright up there, but basically we have the D8 tension dice to roll first to see if we're upon entering the room, the same as like when we're knocking the door down, trying to knock a door down. We're trying to see if entering the room, this sort of element of time is getting us closer to an event of badness. So let's see. Ooh, yep. It was only a matter of time. So we rolled a 1 or a 2. We rolled the 2. So our tension die has dropped to a D6 next time. Now we're at the D10. We were able to downgrade our finding the boss, and let's roll a D10 and hope to get a 1 or a 2. We got the 1. Okay, things are moving along in both. I kind of like this progression. As we're getting closer and closer to the boss, we're also drawing more darkness towards us, and the place is getting creepier and creepier. So we're at tension die D6, layer and domain exit die at D8. So glacial burrower, here we come. All right, cool. So that was entering this room, which the doors are falling down. So we have entered the room. We did our checks for tension, layer, and tick down a light source. So now we're going to roll a D20 and see if we have an event or an encounter. And it's a 50-50 because a 10 plus would mean we're in combat. And we're in combat, and that's actually exactly what I was hoping. Again, I'm going to let the dungeon tell us, but I was hoping to get to do a combat this round because last video we did more camping and crafting and events. So we do have an encounter, so we're going to go ahead and resolve the encounter. So I also have a nice flowchart that breaks down the encounters just a little bit more. So this, you can see we have the combat encounter, and it takes us down the flowchart of the rounds of encounter. And again, this is fan-made material, so I might just leave this up here to help, determine that here in a bit. But we're going to jump straight into who we're fighting. So let's go to combat enemies in our book, and let's roll on our tables for enemies. So first we get to roll I believe it's a D6 basically between if we're rolling on combat table A or B. It is. So combat table A is a 1 through 3 and B is a 4, 5, or 6. So we're doing combat table B, and we'll be fighting. What we found was a number 11. So The swarmers are in this room. Okay, and before we read about the swarmers, let's also, actually it's in this book, I don't need to close it yet, but I would like to see what the setting of this room is. So one thing we didn't roll yet is the room description. And again, I'm enjoying sort of the story so far and the feel of it. So I would like to see on the room description table, page 89, what the setting of this fight with the swarmers feels like, looks like. This is the one that's for purely flavor. So we're trying to roll a D100 here. So 81 is the flavor of this room. Horrifying paintings and sculptures depict scenes of unimaginable suffering and torment. This fits perfectly with that Valerian Lord's ghost that just was in the previous room. Because if you remember, I thought potentially this was leading into his antechambers, his sort of study, his room of evil and chaos. And in his room of gloom and doom, there's a swarmer. Swarmers are horrifying and relentless monsters, a nightmarish amalgamation born from the unholy union of thousands of smaller creatures. Their colossal form is a grotesque mass of chittering insects, squirming worms, and writhing serpents, all fused together in a monstrous swarm. Swarmers attack with unrelenting ferocity, unleashing a deluge of venomous bites, stings, and corrosive secretions upon its prey. Its swarm form makes it a formidable adversary, allowing it to attack from multiple angles and overwhelm even the bravest of foes. So we will be fighting one swarmer. It's an animal type construct. Where is its soft spot? It'll be on the combat table. So animal construct, I imagine they're also set, like, I'm trying to find their hit, critical hit location, which probably is going to be the head, although why am I not seeing it here? Oh, just it doesn't have one, because like here, for example, in the Stone Warden hit location humanoid head, the swarmer doesn't really have a soft spot or critical hit spot. So okay, they're quite aware, so they have an awareness of 50. That's pretty strong. They've got 6 hit points. Combat skill is, a little bit below average at 30, but it is quite resistant to magic. Luckily, we don't have a ton of spells to throw at him yet. He has the penetrating and venomous traits. So let's go check out what penetrating and venomous are. So venomous, when damaged by this creature, you must pass an endurance check or received poisoned 1. So we'll have to remember that we need to do endurance checks, which our endurance is only a 10. We never level that up. So if we get damaged by him, there's a pretty high chance that we end up getting the poisoned condition, which we will pull up under conditions here real quick just to review. So if you're poisoned for X, a poisoned 1, a poisoned character receives a specified amount of damage every round, so for 1 round, until the condition is removed or resisted. Or I guess the poisoned open print 1 might mean we take 1 damage. It is assumed that the poison takes hold when first used, but as a free action, a poison character can attempt to resist its effects during their turn by passing an endurance check. So we can keep trying to take an endurance check each round. This is a cumulative condition, so while initially it will seem harmless, you must treat the damage received as a damage roll. So if the poison damage is 3, that means the victim suffers 1 damage per the damage dealt table. Got it. It can slowly become a real threat. Interesting. It's cumulative. Wow. So poisoned 1 is it slowly leaking this 1 damage on the damage dealt table each turn. So the first time, a damage of 1 on the dealt table won't deal damage, but as it accumulates, you get higher and higher in the amount of damage you're taking. So you really need to pass that endurance check. That's so cool. Okay, I haven't been poisoned before. I'm not looking to find out more about that, but that's actually coming from the venomous trait. And then penetrating 1, do we know what penetrating means? So that might be, I think that was something, it was a keyword that isn't specific even just to, here we go, penetrating. This creature's attack ignores an amount of armor equal to the X value. Well, that's unfortunate. The attack ignores an amount of armor because our arms are defended by the vambrace. So he can penetrate through our vambrace. And I think if we go to our items table on the Vambrace, it did say it was medium armor. I want to look at my Vambraces on 194. I want to double check the amount of armor our arms are giving us. So we have a medium. Okay, so a medium Vambrace actually gives us 2 protection. So he would penetrate, hypothetically, if he hit our arms, he would ignore 1 of the 2 protection and we would still be able to block for 1 extra damage. So that's not bad. I'm going to make note of that because I don't believe I had that on my sheet here. I just wrote medium, so I'm going to write equals 2, or yeah, 2 protection. Or I guess that would be just 2 armor. Sorry, bear with me because my notes were just making me unhappy. So 2 armor, something like that. Medium 2 armor, and then -5 to the maneuverability. So, okay, we kind of are getting to the point where we can commence battle. I just wanted to get all of that together. And then I have my character battle sheet, which is really nice to just quickly have things here. So I'm going to update our template. So we have 13 out of 14 health points. Our toughness is now fully at 14 because in the last session we did rest. And our sanity remains at 11, magic resistance at 20. We healed our exhaustion by camping. We have, okay, here we go. So we have armor is 2 on the arms. So I'm putting that up. And then Xilia is here. She has a weak spot in the head. Our Swarmer is going to have the magic resistance of, you know, the Overseer influence. So MR plus 10, although again, we're not sending spells at him yet. He has no weak spot. And what else can I tell you about the Swarmer? So we can have it on our, I just like having it all on our combat sheet. And that way, once we begin battle, it's just all ready to go. So combat is here, enemies are here, and we'll go into the Swarmer. This is where pen and paper, you do get to do some manual flipping around, but I do have these little pencils to mark the spots. I should have been using them. Okay, so his awareness is 50. Our perception is 50. And so we're going to determine right off the bat who has the initiative. I'm not going to try and surprise him. So we're just rolling opposing D100. So mine are always the red dice and his are the darker dice, the heavier metal ones. So let's see. We got 66 and he got 12. So we did fumble, and I think the new zine actually potentially has fumble rules for everything, including perception now. So let me see. I think that may mean I would assume that means I might get surprised. Here we go, perception. So blind spot, the character completely misses a crucial detail or misinterprets the situation. They have disadvantage on their next perception check. Interesting. So yeah, so critical successes and failure consequences for all checks. With this new action, any action has the possibility for both critical success or failure, instead of limiting it to combat and scavenging. So on the next perception check, now luckily I don't have a perception check to do hopefully in this battle. I guess we'll find out if that's going to come up, but I will make notes. So I will put that in my notes somewhere. I'll just put it under perception because the next time I make a perception check. So I'm going to put a star disadd so that next time I come look at my perception check, I will see that I have a disadvantage to resolve, and then I'll erase that. So the Swarmer has taken the upper hand, so they will go first. And so let's look at the combat round. I think this will be a good summary for those of you who haven't seen the flow of combat. We'll go over it together real quick. So the attacking character will always have +10 to their combat skill in the opposed roll check. So the attacking character will get the +10 modifier. And since they have initiative, they're going to go first. And basically, they'll take their combat skill, which we saw in the book was 30, and add the +10. So they'll be rolling 40 or under. And we're going to be using our shafted weapon, which is our pilum, skill points, which are currently buffed to 70, which is really nice because we have plus 10 from Weapon Master. We were at a base of 60 because I really pumped points into the shafted weapons. So we're rolling 70 or under. And that'll be the first thing that we'll check. So let's go ahead and resolve that. We can quickly do that. So we rolled a 69, or is that 69? Yeah, 69. So we're one under. That's 60, right? Yeah, 69. We're one under our skill check of 70, and they rolled 66, so they fumbled, baby. They rolled 66. Now, I kind of want to say that they are going to, and I'm pretty sure there are rules for creature fumbles in the new book as well. So let's see what happens when creature fumbles. So we're going to roll a d10. Oh, that's a d6. What am I doing? D10. 9. Okay, the creature manages to strike itself, receiving d8 slashing damage. That's amazing. So again, fumble. Sorry if I didn't clarify. So fumble is when you roll 2 of the same number over your skill. If you roll 2 of the same number under your skill, that's a critical hit. So 66 was over his. He was trying to hit 40 or below. So 66 was a critical fumble, and we have, thanks to the new zine, we have a table for his fumble. So he's going to deal d8 slashing damage to himself. What a dork. 4. So this is how damage works in the game. So in the game, there's a damage dealt table that helps sort of mitigate some of the damage in a sense. So when you're rolling on these dice, they get scaled. And when you add dice modifiers, there's like an upper limit to the amount of damage you can take. So the damage dealt table is going to be in the combat section for sure. And it should be here. So, oops. So basically he rolled a 4. And so die roll of 2 to 4 means 1 damage dealt. So die roll of 1 would have meant 0 damage dealt. A die roll of 5 to 7 goes to 2, 8 to 9, 3. And anything 10 or more goes to 4 damage dealt. And so that kind of caps off what one particular big hit can do, is that 4 total damage dealt. Because some of the buffs and modifiers, and you might get the die roll buffed and modified up super high. So that's what the damage dealt table kind of scales for everything. So he's really only taking 1 damage, but the good news is, you know, that's a decent chunk of his life total. So let's go look at his life total was, I think we said it was 6 or 7. So we're going to go back to his enemies page, where of course my pencil fell out as I'm trying to show you all this stuff. But his HP was 6. So we are going to deal 1 damage. So I've got his 6 HP at a 6, and he is now at a 5 at a 6 HP. And then his characteristics are he has 40 magic resistance because he comes with a base of 30, and he has the Glacial Burrower's plus 10. And then his last thing is, does he have armor? He does not have armor. So, and then we're just going to add to this sheet that he's got Penetrating 1 and Venomous. So Venomous and Penetrating 1. Okay, so let's go back to our combat flow. So he failed to hit us. In fact, he fumbled so badly. Where's our Swarmer? Our Swarmer looks like this guy. We're using this guy. He's our Swarmer from Mansions of Madness, actually, this mini. So he tried to come up to Xilia and attack her, and he tripped over. There was like a freaking stone in the way, and as he was making his attack, he trips and stumbles and slashes his own leg, and he's over here being a goof. Now, one thing we did not do that I did miss was, before even rolling, we needed to roll what kind of attack he was going to do. And so that was on me. I still am going to accept that he fumbled his roll. But he has 2 different kinds of attacks. He has a physical and a magical attack. And he would have done this in different ways. So we did cheat a little bit in that sense, because if it had been a magical attack, we would have gone about resolving it in a different way. But for now, we're just going to say he was trying to do either Venomous Bite or a Swarm Assault. So interesting. The target must succeed on an endurance check or be blinded until interesting. Okay, so we're gonna go to the top of our turn. Ignore my little, I guess, cheating on round one. So now we're rolling our 70 plus 10. So we're rolling under an 80 or under. And he is trying to, again, roll his combat skill of 30 or less. And let's see what happens when we're trying to attack him. We're not going to target anything because he doesn't have a critical hit spot. So we did pass our test at 21. Now, did he pass? He was at 76, so no. So the thing here would have been if we passed at 21 and say his combat skill at 30, he passed at 29, he would have won that round because in an opposed skill check of D100s, if both people pass their skill check, whoever is higher in that in being closer to their skill in a sense, whoever's number is higher would have won the round. So we do end up winning the round, which is really cool. And by the way, we were of course going to do our aggressive maneuver here because we want to kill this guy as soon as possible before being, murdered by his poison. So my most aggressive current attack is the bash. So the bash is where I get to add a d4 plus the already passive d4 I get from being a weapon master. So we get to roll 1d6, which is the normal weapon, plus a second d4 and a second d4. So weapon master and bash, and then my normal Pilum attack. And all this is coming in for a grand total of... Okay, so we have 3 plus 3 plus 4. So now this is where I want to double check on... Let's go ahead and look at the Weapon Master rules. So this would be under our different types of character classes. So Weapon Master says choose a weapon, which we did, the Pilum. And it says your weapon's skill is increased by 10, which we've already done for a combat check. And the damage you deal is increased by d4 when wielding it. So damage you dealt, so we've modified the first roll by plus d4. And then the same thing with the bash, which is under weapon wrath spawn. Bash says you strike suddenly and violently at your opponent, increasing the damage dealt by d4. So both are getting the damage increased by d4. So after rolling, any damage modifiers are applied to the lowest die roll, but only to a single die. After rolling, any damage modifiers are applied to the lowest dice roll, but only to a single die. Okay, cool. And so basically, we get to do a total of, we've done 3 plus 3, 6 plus 4. So we got all the way up to 10. So we did 4 more damage to him. Because if this had been separate, it would have been like 1 plus 1 plus, and the 4 would have been 1. So it would have been like 3 damage. So we got 1 extra damage by doing the modifier this way. So I think that's correct. Either way, it's only a difference of 1 damage overall. So he ends up taking 4 damage, which is awesome because he's now down, on top of tripping and slashing himself. Basically, Xilia lands this epic bash. So she tripped and fell towards her sword wielding, her Pilum wielding hand, and she just immediately bashes into this guy and sticks it in him, and he's bleeding out, and he's really suffering here with 1 HP left. He's hanging on. So let's see what this guy can do. Let's see if the Swarmer is even as bad as we initially described him as, because honestly, he sounds scarier than he's turning out in this battle. We're doing really good. So again, here's our Swarmer, and he's gonna roll. He now has the attack bonus of plus 10, so his normal combat skill of 30 goes up to 40, and we're defending at a 70 or lower. So let's see what happens. So we take our dice and we roll 2 opposing D100s. I got a 48, so I'm solid, and he got a 9. He got 00 plus a 9. So we both passed, but I passed at the higher number. So I passed at a 48, so I successfully block him. Now here's what's really cool. There is in combat a defensive maneuvers chart. So because I defended well, I get to roll on a D10, and I get to see what benefit I get from my defensive maneuver. I get the number 6. My next attack deals plus D10 damage. He's so dead anyway, even if I deal 1 damage, but dealing plus D10 damage, he's going to be dead. So let's quickly roll up 2D100. Now we have the positive 10, so we're at 80 or under, and he's at 30 or under. Now we rolled a 22, which is a critical hit, and he rolled a 49. So he rolled over his, and we got a critical hit. So this is insane. So on top of doing plus D10 damage, wow, we're rolling D6, D4, D4 for the bash, but a critical hit means we get to do all that times 2. I'm only going to roll it once because this is more than enough to kill him. We're at 5, 1, 3. I mean, he's dead. So we really just murderized this swarmer. I am not worried at all. We did so freaking awesome. Xilia, you're my girl. That felt really good. So you missed the Wrath Elemental battle from the previous room, which I was getting rocked, but my God, does it feel good to have the dice rolling in my favor, especially when I'm trying to stream and share it. It's fun to win. So here are the steps of post-combat. So we do get to roll on the spoils table for resources. So the Swarmer is going to drop us resources. But before we even do that, let's see what happens. So we get, when we win, play the Final Fantasy win music or something, we get 50 XP, we regain 1d4 toughness. If we had used armor, we would have checked his durability, but this guy didn't even touch us. So our Van Braces are chilling. If it was an Overseer, we'd get 200 XP, which it wasn't, and we would regain 1d4 sanity. And then we just would check for the spoils, which we have resources. So let's go ahead and start doing some bookkeeping. So Xilia goes from 380 to 430 XP. We are almost halfway to a level up. A level up for level 1 to 2 will be at 1000 XP. Now we dealt significant amount of piercing damage towards our dealing 200. So I'm going to say, wait, was that I think that was at 26. So I'm going to add at least 6 more, so 32. And then scavenging the room is going to happen soon. So we're going to try to scavenge this room here in a second. Let's go ahead and go to the resources table. Oh, let's regain 1d4 toughness because we're fully, dude, the guy didn't even touch us. What am I talking about? What am I even talking about? This guy didn't even touch us. Resources, 204. So I think resources are not as good as spoils potentially. I mean, it's important. They're important, but spoils is where we got our magical belt. So here with resources, we can find cooking and crafting supplies. We're going to roll a d10. I'll take it. You know, you gotta have those. So I got a 9. So I got 1x crafting supply. So let's go to our little upkeep section here, and I'm going to explain something here. So we got 8 crafting instead of 7. We got an extra crafting, so we're at 8. And I was going to just explain real quick in case you can see some of the gear in here, the candles, the rations, the bandages, the attunement crystals, they're all kind of put together in this one gear slot because these are considered small items and you can group together 10 of those into one slot. But a bedroll, for example, said it took 2 full gear slots, and I need to look up again the benefits, but obviously I think it's for camping benefits. But the other ones, these are just 1 gear slot each. So we're down to a total of 7 out of our 10. Magical belt though is equipped now, so we've already unlocked it. We unlocked last session, if you were with us, we unlocked the magical belt and we have put it on, and it is actually, on top of it being magical and giving us resistance and some immunity to fear and psychic damage, we also now have belt quick slots, which are going to be really fun to look at how we can put torches and things into these so that we don't have to carry the light source, and then we can open up our hands for things like dual wielding or two-handing. So yeah, that's going to be really freaking fun. But in the meantime, that was an example of combat today, so I'm really excited about that. What I usually do is I'm just going to go ahead and erase the worksheet stuff from the Swarmer. And he didn't even get to do any venomous or penetrating stuff. That guy was a chump. He came in, he tripped over himself, and we stabbed the heck out of him. Super fun for me to get to do that. So let's go ahead and scavenge this room. So you remember my scavenging score Xylia's scavenging score has dropped by -10 from our encounter with the Demon Lord in the last room. So we need to roll a 20 or under here to be able to find some more goodies in the room. You get to do this once per room. Nope, 64. So I'm going to make note that we had a scavenge done here and we did a swarmer fight. And that this was, you know, a room that was disturbing art. It was like the room was like full of horrors and disturbing imagery. Like, what a creepy looking room. So now what we can do is basically see what lies ahead, and I think we'll just check, you know, is this first door locked? We're just going to go one by one because we should be able to, on 3 different doors, get a door that's unlocked here. And on a door check of a d20, it is basically just, I think a 12 or more would have meant it's locked, but at a 3, it most certainly isn't. Yeah, 12 plus would be locked. So this first door right here is open, and we're just not even gonna, I guess, why don't we go ahead and roll the other 2, might as well. Let's see, so one of them on the right is unlocked, one on the left is a 6 unlocked. So actually, if we ever need to come back and backtrack, all 3 of these are unlocked. So now Xilia just wants to proceed forward, and she wants to determine, is this door trapped? So she's going to roll a d10. On 7 or less, it is not trapped. It is trapped. So here's where it gets fun. These are the rules I was trying to clarify. Let me hopefully do them correctly. So this is what's cool, is the door is trapped, and what we need to do is determine how difficult it is for her to perceive this trap. Because once we know it's trapped, Xilia has to perceive it so she doesn't get hit by the trap. So what we have to do is the random difficulty test that modifies her perception of the trap. So we're trying to say, like, is this door ahead of us child's play, and which would give us plus 30 to our modifier, or is it impossible? So is minus 30 to her perception. Now remember, she's eagle-eyed, so her perception is quite strong at 50. So let's roll a d8. 3. This is an easy trap to identify. So it's plus 10 to her 50 perception. So she needs to roll 60 or less to perceive this trap. So now we're asking, does Xilia notice with her eagle eye and the ease of the trap? She rolled a 75. She missed perceiving the trap. We're starting to get in trouble now with this trap. So with that being said, we now have to determine what kind of trap we have triggered and if we were able to dodge it. So what's happening next is we're going to our traps table, which should be coming up here soon, or I can just go to the back again and look up our traps table. So that'll be on 105. Eventually I'll get more savvy with this stuff. So she has unfortunately triggered some sort of trap. We're rolling a d10, a 7. So this will be an athletics check. So noxious gas is released, filling the chamber. All characters must pass an endurance check or immediately receive 2d4 poison damage. So, okay, so that the skill check to avoid is different. That's if you are trying to, let's see, so skill check to avoid. This one wants us to do an endurance check. So I guess we do skill check to avoid, an athletics check if you want to avoid the trap, right? So if you want to simply avoid the trap and let it be, you can perform the skill check associated with the trap in question as shown on the trap effect table. If you do this, you can only exit the room if you're already in it and cannot search it. Each time you enter this room, you must make the same skill check to avoid the trap, but it becomes a plus 10 easy task. If the trap was placed on a door or container, you can simply move on, ignoring it. So, because we were here, if the lock is trapped, you must perform the perception check to see if you detect it in time. If you pass the check, you may attempt to dismantle the trap. So we did not pass the check. So what happens now is we have the noxious gas being released, and we're going to our endurance check, which unfortunately we are at a 10. So this is going to be very hard for her to dodge this. On a D100 roll, we need 10 or less. We got 78. So we're taking 2d4 poison damage. 4 plus 2. So 6 on the damage dealt table will turn out to be quite a bit. So we're taking 2d4 poison damage. So 2. So we're taking 2 poison damage. So poison is now 2, unfortunately. So that damage goes directly, I'm pretty sure, to her toughness. So she goes down to 12 out of 14. And the fact that she got 2d4 poison damage, I'm going to go ahead and check on the Discord later to ask if that becomes persistent and that we need to do anything. I wonder if it was classified under poison because you might have extra susceptibility to poison damage and such. But as far as I know for now, I just took the 2 damage and I'm not sure that it's a persistent poisoning effect, and I'm going to clarify that. And if so, I'll come back and make note of that for next round. But we've stepped into the new room and we walked through that door. So we're now walking through and we're about to find out what this is. So again, as we walk through this room, we're going to follow the 3 basic steps. We have used up our last light source, so we'll have to consume more for our next room. We are going to roll the tension and layered dice. So are we getting closer to the boss, and are we triggering a growing darkness event? So D6 for the growing darkness event, tension die. 3, we're barely safe from that. So walking through this room, timeline wise, has not gotten us closer to a bad event. But now we really want this D8 to land on a 1 or 2 so that we can get closer to our burrower. 1! You guys, we're doing some really good progress today. So this D8 is now a D6. I don't know how we're getting so lucky. Well, I'll take it. You gotta take the luck with the bad luck, right? So now we're gonna see what this room looks like with our light source. We opened up the room and we're taking a look in. What do we see? This is a 40 plus a 10, so I guess that's 50, right? Because it's a D10. So what is 50 is an interesting looking one. It's this guy right here. And so this room 50 really only has 1 door ahead of us. So we only have in this room this 1 exit, and it looks like 50 here. So it's got this sort of like initial chamber that's a small antechamber. I keep using that word. And then it's got the bigger room ahead of it that actually has the door, and that's sort of what it's going to look like. Doop, doop, doop. And this door here, we don't know yet its situation, but we need to decide now. After doing those steps again, we are looking to see, is this room going to have, after the tension check, layer check, which both went really well for us, and ticking down our last light source, will this room have an encounter or an event? And that's going to be on a D20. Oh, it's a 20. So this is going to be a very tough monster. So this was the new rules from the second zine. And I'm excited to share this modifier. So as explained on page 86 of Ker Nethalas, when checking for combat encounters, you must make a D20 roll. This usually means that with a roll of 10 plus for rooms or 15 plus for corridors, you've run into some sort of combat. When using the combat encounter modifiers, though, if you roll a 20, not only must you face an opponent, you've encountered a unique version of the regular encounter. This can be something as simple as a veteran, more experienced creature, or one that has been changed and mutated by the strange sorceries that abound in the Midnight Throne. When this is the case, roll on the creature modifiers table. Encounters modified this way are more difficult, and as such will grant increased amounts of experience points. So a D66 sounds like we're rolling 2 6-sided dice. Oh, and sorry, before I roll, I need to specify which one's the 10s, which one's the 1s. So we'll say blue is 10s, red is 1. So 23. Alert. This creature's awareness is increased by 10, and you will also get plus 10 XP. And let's just see what kind of creature we are fighting so we can set up the monster. So I have our little cheat sheets here. So 23. So this is going to be combat table B, and this is going to be a modified high level rot walker. So what in the world even is a rot walker? Let's find out together. So we're going to our enemies, and we're going to go in alphabetical order to the R's. Rot walker. So he's going to get, before I even go any further into reading about him, let's just make note that his awareness is plus 10, and his XP will be plus 10, so we'll get 60. So this is a buffed up Rotwalker. So a Rotwalker's wretched form is that of a once human creature, now consumed by the relentless march of decomposition. Its pallid, leathery skin hangs loosely from its skeletal frame, exposing festering wounds and bones in a gruesome display of mortality's defeat. The Rotwalker's eyes, hollow and devoid of life, glow with an unholy, malevolent light, seeking out the living with a ravenous hunger. This wretched being shambles forward with a haunting gait, its limbs contorted and disjointed, making each step an eerie cadence of suffering. The stench of death and decay precedes its arrival, warning the unfortunate of its relentless pursuit. Its groans and guttural moans echo through the silent night, a mournful dirge that chills the hearts of those who hear it. It is an undead humanoid type creature, and it has undead and frightening traits, which, you know, I think we discussed potentially in the first video, but it was something that here, an undead. So undead is immune to charm, poison, and disease, restored by necrotic damage, and vulnerable to holy damage. And then frightening is the one that is bad for us. There's like horrifying and frightening, and I think of the two, they take sanity away from you each round if you don't pass I think it was like a resolve check. I'll double check on that, but I plan on stopping here and resuming with this fight on the next video. At this point, I feel like I've demonstrated one fight already, and that was a pretty good fight, and then I'll pick back up with the buffed up Rotwalker, who will have increased awareness of our entering the room, and so I don't know that we'll get the jump on him or the initiative, but that was a great, I think, example of what combat in Ker Nethalas looks like, and sort of how we were continuing to make progress towards the Glacial Burrower's domain, or his location within the domain. We've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we're in our 6th room right here, about to face off with the Rotwalker. And every step we're getting closer and closer to finding our Glacial Burrower and surviving this domain, because if next time's battle goes well, you know, we may need a camp, we may not, but currently we're at full toughness, and we still have another really good thing for this battle that we haven't used yet is our once per rest. We have a buffed up attack, spending our magical ability, spending Aether. Xilia has access to buffing doing one big brutal attack per rest, and so if we get into danger with this monster, we always can really fall back onto that once per rest bonus. And another thing that's really fun that I forgot is that Xilia has the lucky trait. So she did take some flaws to her character. So one of her merits is she's lucky. So lucky says once per domain, which we haven't used yet, we can make any dice roll the most optimal roll possible. And in retrospect, I loved the magic belt. I do think in a sense, I'm glad I got a magic belt. But if you recall in my last video, when I rolled I got the precious item, and then I rolled like high on the precious item, but not to get a relic. I could have used her lucky trait to make that a 20, like a critical hit to get a relic. So it's something that in retrospect, I'm not upset about, because I do love my magical belt. I think it's really cool and I want it. But before this domain is over, since we are making really good progress, I need to remember that she has this once per domain lucky roll, which I think the best use of it really is on a spoils table, that you may want to find the best item there, let her get lucky and just grab it. The other thought is, of course, in battle with the Overseer, who's going to be a tough boss battle, to save your lucky roll for the boss. So really cool things to track. One more thing in combat that came up that I have made note of is on top of her Wrath Spawn, damage boosting ability I just described as once per rest, she can gain 5 exhaustion to spend another action point per round. So in one round, she can do an extra action point at the cost of +5 exhaustion. So exhaustion can really come up and to haunt you in the dungeon diving. If I'm assuming there might be an event that has you test how exhausted you are, and you might fall or die if you're too exhausted to handle it. And if you don't camp and rest to heal that exhaustion, you're going around weary. So it's an interesting way to push your luck in a battle, to really say, I need another action point here to finish this guy off. I don't want to let him have another turn, so let me push myself in battle. So there's all these little things and nuances I'm still picking up, and of course if I make any mistakes I will come back to try to correct myself where I can. But for now, hopefully that was a good demonstration and session of combat in this world of Ker Nethalas, and let's see next time if Xilia can take down the Rotwalker, which will look like, it's got to be this guy, right? It's got to be the Rotwalker. Wow, that looks good. All right, until next time, until this battle happens, wishing you all good luck in your own battles ahead too.